today I want to cover some of the best things you can do to help improve your aim and really master it within Apex Legends. Now this is stuff I've implemented while playing Apex, and it's stuff that I found really helpful and really helped me out. Now it will take a bit of practice to get your aim perfect, but doing these sort of things gradually over time you'll start seeing results straight away, just improving on it day by day or each time you load up Apex, and those will all amount to better aim. So without wasting time, let's get straight to it. Now my first tip here is something you should already know, but if you don't, I would highly recommend you learn the recoil patterns and the weapons in the firing range and fully get to grips with how each weapon works. Even if it's weapons you're not particularly a fan of, you might end up getting stuck with them at the early game and you might not have any other choice, but you don't want to be so reliant on certain weapons that you're good with just in case you can't get them for a whole game. So I highly recommend you take some time and really learn the recoil patterns and how to counter them using your right thumbstick or your mouse, whatever it might be. Countering the recoil patterns is one of the best things you can do. Obviously, that will help have a more steady aim, and your aim will be more central when you're shooting at your opponent. You're aiming at the head but not adjusting for recoil, your bullets are probably going straight over them. Now the next tip I want to give here is something I always say, and you've probably heard it if you've seen a few of my other videos, but you need to start finding the right sensitivity that works for you and stop changing it every time you go on Apex if you're having a bad day. You need to get something that works and something that you can adjust to. Now, I always say it's worth trying out different people's settings, but what you need to be doing is using those as a base, finding the best settings that you think, actually, these are quite nice. I like these. But maybe this thing's a little too fast, or maybe this is just a little too slow. So I would then take those settings as a base and start adjusting them from there. So maybe improving the yaw speed, maybe turning down the dead zone, or maybe reducing the ADS speed. That's one of my personal favorites. I prefer to have a slower ADS than most people, just because it gives me more precise aim. But just getting and understanding what works for you and really understanding each setting and what each thing does, so that you can find exactly the right sensitivity for you, because everyone's different. And me personally, I've tried, settings of gen burn, which are insanely quick, and I can just not keep on top of it, and I can not aim. And then I've tried way slower sense, and I kind of like a bit of a middle ground. So I'd highly recommend you just play around, fully understand what each setting does, and find the ones that are right for you. The next thing you need to be doing is, before hopping straight into a game of Apex, start doing some aim drills. Working using the wingman, maybe 30-30s, the 301, R99 volts, whatever it might be. Practice without barrel stabilizers, practice without sights, work on hitting the mannequins and the targets. I have sort of my own sort of drills that I do each time I load up Apex and get me ready and just get me adjusted to playing the game, especially if I've been playing different games. If you're playing different games and then you're coming over to Apex, your settings are probably different on each game, and how each game feels is going to be entirely different. So make sure you get into the habit of doing some aim drills. If you need help with some, there's plenty on YouTube already. They might be able to sort of give you some guidance and like, oh yeah, maybe do this and start here and work your way down and all this. And just practicing on hitting different targets and on your recoil and stuff, you'll gradually get better, and then you'll feel more prepared for when you're actually heading into a game. Now the next thing you need to know is you don't actually have to use your right thumbstick to always get your aim right. So what I mean by this is, if you're actually holding your recoil down, you still of course need your right thumbstick, but if your enemy is strafing or you're strafing, you can actually just leave your crosshair where it is and counter aim or adjust your movement to get your crosshair right on the target. And it sounds a little strange, but I'll put it on screen now, and you can see just by moving my left stick and not moving my right, it's sort of like the bullets are going to head straight into the enemy. And if they're strafing around like most people do and trying to avoid your shots, if you can sort of pre-aim where they might be heading or trying to combat their movement, you're probably going to hit more of your shots than trying to track them, because although you should be working on your tracking, you can also counter aim them as well. Counter aiming can work great in certain situations, mainly in closer fights, I would think, but give it a go and don't always rely on just using your right thumbstick to aim perfectly. My fifth tip here is something I see a lot of people doing, and I'm not quite sure why, but it's knowing when to ADS and when not to. So I mean aim down sights by that. And I've seen people like really close range with the 2x, like aiming down sights to try and hit their shots. The thing with Apex is most of the weapons have pretty good hip fire, and especially the SMGs. Half the time, even getting on medium range, you don't even need to be ADSing, which I see people doing, like really up close, and they're just hindering themselves by ADSing and missing more shots than they really need to. The hip fire is perfectly fine, the spread on it is fine, so again, practice hip firing with different weapons and understand how hip fire works in Apex. Obviously, there'll be more spread on things like assault rifles compared to SMGs, but just understanding when to ADS and when not to is going to be way more beneficial. If you look at some of the other people played, in a lot of close quarters, they won't be ADSing, and there's no need to. It reduces your movement speed and will just make it harder to hit your shots. Now, my final tip here is one that you're going to have to do through practice, and this is going to take a lot of practice. So what you need to be doing is staying calm when you're taking in-game fights. Now, a lot of people get into a fight and they panic and their aim goes absolutely wild, sending it all over the place, and they miss all their shots. What you need to be doing is practicing taking those in-game fights. The firing range is all great and all, but them in-game fights are where people start panicking. So if you really want to improve your aim, make the main focus of your games in pubs. I'm saying pubs because in ranked, you know, that's a whole different situation. Make it more about taking the fights and not necessarily the wins. I mean, you can also do this in arenas as well, because that's just constant fights and there's no third parties, and it'll just help you stop panicking as much and hopefully improve your aim over time. So they're my best tips to help you improve your aim in Apex. If this has helped you out, please let me know in the comments below. I love hearing from you guys. Hit that like button. But for now, guys, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.